Welcome everybody to the last, this is the last North Reading Reads event that was associated, except for one. Helena's going to keep me honest. I'm Jean Osborne from the Friends of the North Reading Library. And we've been pleased to present these programs to you. And Helena's going to keep me honest, like I said. This is the last North Reading Reads program, except for the actual Walk in the Woods. The North Reading book was A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. And there's been several events here on green and green energy, and Les's talk is going to be on building green energy. And the last event will be a real walk in the woods. It's being led by Janet Nicosia, and it's going to be in the, what are the woods?
Ives Memorial Forest.
Ives Memorial Forest, which is off of Arline Drive in North Reading. So if you want to attend that, that's on, what is that? That's next week. April 26th, I believe. I'd just like to run down just a couple really other things by the Friends in support of the library. There is a silent auction going on upstairs. There's a beautiful blue, very blue painting that was donated by Ron Liss, who is a business person in town. And that is up for silent auction, so feel free to go up and see it when you have a chance. We also have 2 raffles going on in the back of the room. There's a big recycling bin, and it's full of really good stuff. There's also some gift certificates in there to local merchants. There's a bottle of organic wine. There's a bird feeder. There's a puzzle, a big puzzle of trees of North America. So there's lots of good things in there. So chances are $1 or 6 for $5. And there's also another raffle of a gift certificate to Moynihan's Lumber for, it's a $50 gift certificate, and you can put your raffle ticket in there as well. We also have a book sale that's going on May 2nd and May 3rd. We solicit your book donations as much as possible. We're still collecting books and sorting books in the back hallway, and the book sale will be on the 2nd from 4 to 8 p.m. and the 3rd from 9 to 2. And we also would appreciate any volunteers, any strong people in particular. We're moving books from here to there a couple times during that event. So if you can volunteer for an hour or two, please see us or see Joanne Haley. We also have, on May 7th, we have Origami for Teens, a teen program. On May 9th, there's Music with Dara for the kids. And our other big event that's happening this spring that you might all want to attend is the Birds of Prey. We're having the Birds of Prey, who are real hawks and falcons, are coming. They're put on by Wingmasters, an organization of 2 people who rehabilitate birds from the wild, and they bring them to show at schools and libraries and so forth. They put on a very nice show, so please consider coming to that. Our Friends get first dibs on the tickets for that, though, because we're hoping that there will be a large crowd, and so Friends will get the first priority. And so without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker of the evening, Les Norford. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but he is a professor of building technology in the Department of Architecture at MIT. He and I go back a long way, maybe back to the 70s, dare I say it. 69. We were both at Cornell University, and I was rooming there with Bertina, who was sitting in the 3rd row. She was my roommate.
We've been together for a long time.
She was my roommate. We've been together for a long time, and Les was dating her. Now he's married to her. So we go back a long time. But Les has been very, very active in this field of energy for a long time, and he's been traveling the world doing consulting with people all over the world, in India and all sorts of places. So I'll let him explain that to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jean. Okay, well, we'll just sort of get into this, and Jean's giving you enough sense of where I come from. So we'll take about 40 minutes or so and then have some questions. Yeah, that seems okay schedule-wise? If I don't get quite to the end, that's okay too. So I'm okay as far as the photographers. Okay, great. So a little bit of background. Some of this is probably familiar to most of you, but this is why should we be concerned about energy? So here's what we've been using of in terms of sort of primary energy, coal, oil, and so on. And visually, you see how much it's grown since we started getting oil out of the ground in the mid-1800s. And for some of us who were started at Cornell in '69, you know, a lot of people in this room were born somewhere around here, and it's, so how many times has it gone up? 8 times since then, even in our lifetime. And you know, we're not going to live off fossil fuels forever at that rate. Expanding the last 20 years, the same thing. So this thing up here is the same thing as just the total. So this covers only 22 years, so the slope isn't as much. And the breakdown by country is here. So North America is going up a little bit, and Africa is the Middle East are kind of down here. The big one that's growing is this blue guy in the middle here, and that's India and China, and then a few other places like Western Europe have actually gone. Well, Eastern Europe, sorry, Russia have gone down some. People sometimes refer to this as the world right now as a 14 terawatt economy, so it's 14 with, I guess, 12 zeros after it, but that number become important, so just as sort of a number to remember, it's kind of what we're using globally right now. Okay, so for the U.S. in sort of where do we use energy? Buildings are here, and they're about 39–40%, and so transportation a little more than a quarter, and industry about a third. And then for electricity, buildings use about 70% of the U.S. total, and that's about the same in England, less in some countries that have more industry. So it's a big deal in terms of our energy use. Scale here isn't so important as just the slope or lack of. These are residential buildings, these are commercial buildings. The magenta is what we pay for at the meter, and the blue here is, say the oil or gas it takes to make the electricity we use, and we lose some at power plants and transmission and so on. But the take home here is, over the last 20 years, even after the oil shocks from the 70s and so on, pretty much flat, okay, down a little bit, and commercial buildings pretty much flat, don't have a lot of data here. So even though supposedly we've been doing something about this for a long time, there's not a whole lot going on here. It's not like a steep slope or something. And this is energy use per square meter, so it doesn't factor in that our population has grown and so on, or, well, that our houses are bigger. We'll talk about that in a second. So why? There are a couple of trends. On the good side, all of us are doing some things right, whether or not we like it. Refrigerators are probably the best story of this. Back in the mid-'70s, oil crisis time, the average U.S. sort of large 20 cubic foot refrigerator, whatever, was way up here, 1,800 kilowatt hours a year, and depending on what you pay for electricity, that's somewhere between 180 and 360 bucks a year just to run the fridge. So it's just been a ski slope since then, and California took the lead there, and as it has in other things. The U.S. sort of got on the bandwagon here during the Reagan years when environmentalists and people who make appliances both begged the federal government to do something because the manufacturers didn't want to have to make 50 different fridges for 50 different states due to 50 different groups of environmentalists. And it keeps going down. So now, any place you go, Walcott's or Lowe's or whatever, and you buy a fridge, the worst thing you're going to buy in the market is a factor of 4 better than the typical thing 30 years ago. So that's a big success story. 30 years ago, if you wanted a good fridge, you paid a fortune for it. The only people who were doing it were pot growers in California who didn't want to be on the electricity grid, so people would come and string wires and snoop around their plants. So they, but now we all get good refrigerators. Okay? There are other appliances. Do we have a slide here? No, we'll get to that later. Are better as well. So why are the lines flat? We have better fridges, we have better hot water heaters, we have better furnaces, and so on. We all have higher standard of living than we did. Maybe there's a second fridge in the basement for liquid refreshment. There's more air conditioning. People in this part of the country didn't used to use it. Now many of us do. And there's a lot more electronics, all those little things that have the lights that glowing in the dark, from your toothbrushes to your microwaves with the clocks and so on. People in my business call those vampire loads because they're always sort of sucking electricity all the time, whether you like it or not. In most of the houses that folks like us live in, they use about as much power as your refrigerator. And it's all these little small things. So maybe more like vampire bats or whatever. Microwaves, we probably all have them. If you're like ours that has a clock in it, like it or not. The clock might use 2, 3, 4, 5 watts, usually between close to 0 and 6. If you're right in the middle there, the amount of energy that clock will use over a year is about the same as you're going to spend on cooking the potatoes and warming last night's leftovers. You know, you hit the button and you're using a lot of power, 1,000 watts, 700 watts, or whatever, but it only happens for a minute and a half. And the clock's on the whole time, okay? And they're sort of a pain to turn off, right? Because you unplug it and then the clock blinks when you turn it back on. I have friends who do unplug them. VCRs that blink if you unplug them. Some of my friends say the best energy conservation device you can get is a little piece of electrical tape and tape it over the thing so then you can turn it off at night, and if you turn it on the next day and it blinks, you're not bothered. Now, full disclosure, we have one in the basement and we use the clock. It's the only clock in the basement, so it's kind of nice to know when the TV program's supposed to start or something. Modems, routers, all this computer stuff. The message here is turn it off if you can. I've gotten into the habit, and at night, the router, the modem, with all the electronics for the computer, hit the switch, put it on a power strip, turn it off, unplug the TV. It makes a difference. I noticed it on our electricity bill. When our daughter was home at Christmas, all this stuff stayed on all the time. She's away, and the bill was 5% more or something. You can find that kind of stuff. Okay, now those energy numbers were per square foot, so this is sort of in addition to that. And if we wonder why all that energy is going up, 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 the total, one reason is that our floor area is going up, up, up. Here's floor area per person down here. Here's floor area per house. So 1950s, baby boomers like us coming on the scene. The typical house is 1,000 square feet, and now it's not quite 2.5 times that much. Per person, 250 square feet, and more than 3 times that now. So it's a lot more wall area that heat's going in and out of, and so on. So we're used to a much higher standing of living than we once had. Okay, so hasn't been a whole lot of progress, and we might ask, it's nice talking to a group like this, because when I talk to students, they're 18, and all this stuff is sort of history or worse. They can't relate to it, so we've all lived through most of this stuff. So in the 70s, when I was just getting started, the deal was, well, it's like drilling for oil in your basement, right? This free stuff. So instead of having to pull it out of the ground, you can just conserve energy. And then there was resource security, which could still be an issue. And then in the 80s, economics, well, it's cheaper than building new power plants, so utilities would give you money to do various things. And then utilities are deregulated and split apart, so that doesn't work so well anymore. And then it was like the 90s, it was sustainability, whatever that means. It's sort of like leaving enough so that our kids and grandkids have as much as we did. And now we're in climate change times. We don't get to repeat the experiment, so if we're cautious, maybe an experiment in terms of what happens if the Earth heats up, we might